Okay, is everything in place? Let's see. That's off, that's off, that's off, that's on. It looks like the stream is live. I think we're ready to get going. So, without further ado, let's get into it. Hello! Shadowcat back! Back with the Magic the Gathering stuff. So, last time we were here, we set up kind of an outline of everything that we need to do, which is less than I thought it was going to be actually, but I think it's because it's not going to be as broad, but it's going to be a lot deeper than it looks. Specifically, when we looked at things like, well, like a grand total of things, we needed to have a Planeswalker class, a travel system, a mana system, and a conversion system to turn cards into creatures and spells. And that on its own doesn't sound like a lot, but there's going to be a lot involved in every single step. It's kind of like if we went back to the Warhammer 40k one and we said, well, I mean, yeah, it's Warhammer 40k, but we only need to do the Imperial Guard, the Mechanicus, the Tau, the Eldar, and that's pretty much it. And then we need to just do a psychic system and a travel system, and we're done. That's only 6 things, right? How long can it take to do 6 things? You can go back and look at the playlist for Warhammer 40k and find out the answer to that one. So, while we don't have a lot to do, we kind of have a lot to do, so we may as well get into it. First things first, though, I look at the chat. I see there's people in the chat. First thing this morning, JP is here, and JP, this is actually, like, just for you, because you're the one that started this whole thing. So, JP, hello. See, I can do that now. I'll see that Blizz is in the chat. Blizz, hello. Good to see you too. It is good to have everyone here this morning, and now let's get into things. So, of course, we're going to need to have our browser, and we're going to need to have our spreadsheet. JP says, yay, we are people. You are a people. Alright, so first things first, we're going to have to get started on the actual mana system, which means that I'm going to need to make myself a new spreadsheet here. So let me just make some room. And new spreadsheet after the current spreadsheet. We're going to call this one the mana system. All right, now for the mana system, we're going to need a few things. We are going to need a way to give mana to the environment. So we need an environmental mana system. And wow, is that like super tiny? Let's go ahead and make that bigger. 14? That's barely manageable. I'll work with it. Let's go ahead and bold it too. That makes it easier to read. Look, I'm telling you, don't ever go blind. Okay? Being blind sucks. Don't ever do it. And JP says, loving the new everything. Looks great. I'm glad you think so. Trying to improve things every time. So we're going to need an environmental mana system that may come with a... Let's be specific. Let's call this a possible cartography system. Although I think that's going to be very, very easy, actually. Because making maps is not something that I'm entirely new to. Now, don't get me wrong. I am not a cartographer, okay? My maps are very, very basic. To the point where let me go ahead and get an example. Let me get an example. Perfect. This is exactly what I needed. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up one of the old maps that I already have made. This was for an older game that I used. Yeah, actually... So here's something I can show off. Oh, you need me to log in again? Okay, I can do that. I'll log in again. Hold on. Been having a lot of internet problems lately, so everything is on the fritz. Technically, I'm still getting messages about the outage in my area, but I haven't seen it yet. But okay, let me go ahead and just move this to the other window. Perfect. Okay, so this is on Roll20. This is where I run all of my games. And speaking of games, if you're interested in playing with us, this is a wonderful time for me to shout out the Discord. So, if you want to join us, you can join the Discord very easily by just simply looking at the link down below. Click on that button. If you want to play with us, you need to go to the Discord. You need to go to the Behind the Screen channel. And let me know what your availability is. Let me know what your availability is. Let me know what games you're interested in playing. And we'll work on finding a group. But I'm not going to linger on that too much. Okay, to that end, this is a map from a game that I played a long time ago. Now, this is the actual world map. And because I'm only using half the screen, you can only, you can't see it very well. Largely speaking, in order to complete this campaign, and this is going to be a very, very long campaign, the party needed to gather artifacts from each of these races. They needed to bring them all together in one place, or else the world would be destroyed. Now, the world was going to be destroyed because the gods decided that, the experiment had failed. They needed to see that all the races had come together to actually build a better world, and that's what the artifacts were for. Well, while that may not be necessarily true, there's no reason that they couldn't bring the artifacts together just to show that, hey, yeah, see, we did it, even if, it hadn't been done. Basically, it was the party's campaign to lie to the gods. And so I made a world map. Now, the map here, you can see you have the equatorial region here with deserts in it. We had a large mountain with a snow cap on it. You can see we have the polar caps, South Pole. You can't see it because I can't scroll far enough, but there's a North Pole up there too. Lots of blue for the oceans, things like that. Now, this is a working map. It's not a very pretty map, but it is a map. To that end, I also had smaller maps, and let me just go through here. And this is for map 8E. So this is the map that you would spend the most time on. And you can see that around the edge there's the oceans. And around here you can see that largely it is plains. That's what the light green is for. This is plains. The brown lines are roads. The blue lines, of course, are rivers. The forests are, they're forests. So a map doesn't have to necessarily be pretty so long as it works. And this is perfectly functional. JP says, yes, Dora, it's a map. I know. I'm going somewhere with this. I promise. Get it? It's a map. I'm going somewhere with this. I'm on a roll. Okay, so every single one of these tiles, every single square in here is land. As such, it can be color-coded. Now, when we're looking at mana, Magic the Gathering uses 5 colors of mana. You've got white mana, black mana, red, blue, green. Every single one of those comes from some kind of resource, and we looked last time at the Ranger's favored terrains. And the Ranger's favored terrains are as follows, and you can read along. They have cold. That's ice, glacier, snow, and tundra. Ice tends to fall under the same category as water for obvious reasons, which means that this would be a source of blue mana. Deserts, sands, and wastelands. Generally speaking, if we ever see somebody from a desert or we see a desert environment, it tends to be white mana. And so that's kind of what I'm inclined to do there. Now it says sand and wastelands. Wastelands would tend to be more of a black mana area though. So we may have to be a little differentiating there. Either that, or we need to find like a proper definition for wasteland. Because I'm not sure. Forests are obvious. We don't even need to go there. Jungles are just overgrown forests with more rain. Jungle... I don't know. Are jungle and rainforest interchangeable? I feel like jungle and rainforest are kind of interchangeable. So we can call it a rainforest. And there we go. So jungle, forest, it's all green mana. Mountains, including hills. Obviously red mana. They're literally called mountains. Plains are plains. Now these plains and these plains are different. These plains do not actually matter because we're going to be skipping between them. Swamps, literally already named. Underground, as in caves and dungeons. Now that's one that I'm not sure what to do with. I'm kind of leaning into the idea that underground, it's gonna probably be equal in everything. Maybe, I'm not sure. Or it might just be none. It might just be blank mana. I'm not positive on that. Then there's urban. Urban will absolutely be colorless mana. And then water, of course, is going to be blue. Now, I bring this one up because we actually, in the bestiary, they also have it divided up by terrain. Or at least you can divide it by terrain. This is the first page of the bestiary. This allows you to find every single monster in the game. And there's ways you can sort it. You can sort it alphabetically, by challenge rating, and by terrain. So we'll take a look. JP says, aren't all preferred depending on the ranger? Well, yeah, kinda. And actually, if you ever play a ranger, you actually get up to 4 favored terrains that you can choose. And so, if you play a ranger long enough, you can pick 4 of these. The odds of you, being in all of them are pretty slim anyway, so 4 is generally good for you. But anyway, if we look at the bestiary, sorted by terrain, we've got aquatic, blue mana, coastline. Now, coastline is interesting because there are actual coastline cards. And I even have a couple of them. I don't have them handy. Not like you could see them anyway. I'm not pulling down the webcam for this. But coastline cards tend to be tappable for either white or blue mana. So that is something we may need to consider. Deserts, again, we already covered that. Forest, hills, jungles, mountains, ocean and sea, plains. Then it's got rivers and lakes. So these are not technically a favored terrain, but they would be blue mana regardless. Bog, marsh, swamp, all of them are pretty much the same. Underground, as we said, maybe black mana, maybe colorless mana. City and urban, same thing. Extra planar, we don't need to worry about. And other is just other. It case-by-case basis, dependent on the DM. JP says, this reminds me of biomes in Minecraft, which raises the question, what would a Minecraft module look like? Honestly, a Minecraft module, I don't think it would be that interesting or involved. I mean, when you think about a Minecraft module, the thing about Minecraft that makes it really appealing is the fact that you can do anything in it. I mean, that is really the appeal of Minecraft. When you break Minecraft down to its key components, graphics. Is Minecraft a graphical masterpiece? No. No, it is not. It is really not. So we can cross that one off. All right. What about power? Is it a powerful game? Is it something that's like a new engine or something like that? The answer to that is no. It's really not. There's nothing terribly powerful about the actual programming of the game. Okay. So then, well, that leaves the gameplay. Is the gameplay for Minecraft anything special? And the answer to that is yes. And why is that? Because you can do anything in Minecraft. It's one of the reasons why I've suggested that we should use Minecraft as an intelligence test. Because I think you should take people and you should just plop them down in Minecraft the way Minecraft is meant to be played. That is, no instructions, no guides, no recipe books, no nothing. Just pure Java Minecraft and just see what they do. Because creative people will find something to do. People who are not creative or people who cannot operate on their own will just stand there and say, I don't get it. Like, those people that sit there and say, I don't get it, they're not in charge. Okay? Only people who can self-motivate and set their own goals deserve to be in charge. So, that's what Minecraft kind of is. It's just a template where you can do anything. And that's kind of also tabletop gaming. It's one of the things that makes Dungeons & Dragons and Pathfinder and all of these special is that you can do anything you want. Like, if you wanted to play Pathfinder and make your character a miner, you can do that. And if you want to make a character and make it a crafting character, you can do that. As a matter of fact, you can even do both in the same character, because you can have your profession be minor, and you can take whatever crafting disciplines you want. So, there you go. Minecraft in Pathfinder, kind of already done, just by default. Okay, and Jeffrey's in here, which means I get to do this again. Hello, Jeffrey. I love being able to do that. Alright, so I think what we need to do is we need to assign we need to assign mana to all of these. So I'm going to grab these and I'm going to copy them in. So I'm going to copy... And where am I going to put these? I'm just going to stick these right here for now. We'll move things around as we need them to. So default formatting. There. JP says, love the wave. I love the wave too. Look, maybe someday I can get like a VTuber model and then I can have like my own kind of avatar up there on the screen. For now though, it's the best I can do. Alright, so now that we've got this done, I want to go ahead and first assign colors to each one of these. And obviously this one's going to be blue. The coastline... we'll get to that one again. Desert is going to be white. Forest is going to be green. Hills. Now, under favored terrains, it qualified hills and mountains together. So I'm going to say for hills... Actually, you know what? I'm going to skip that one for a minute. I'm going to skip it for a minute. Jungles, green, obviously. Mountains, red. Ocean, sea is going to be blue. Plains are going to be white. Rivers and lakes will be blue. Bog, marsh, and swamp is going to be black. Underground. I'll get back to that one in a minute. And city urban is going to be colorless. I don't know if I necessarily want to go with dual colors or not. However, I guess for coastline we could go ahead and just say white, blue. For hills, that's a hard one. So, like I said, the favored terrain's called hills in the same category as mountains. But hills can have a lot on them. Then again, so can mountains. You could have mountains with forest on them. You could have mountains with... Well, you can't... I don't know. I've never seen mountains with grass on them. But you have hills with grass on them. So that'd be kind of like a hill and a plain. I mean, either way, we're going to get red. The question is, do we give it anything else? Actually, no. No, we're not. And there's a reason for that. So this is going to be red. Underground, however. Underground is pretty far away from everything. Okay. I'm going to call it colorless. And the reason for that is I think we need to get into what each one of these actually does. So now that we've got this assigned, we know what each area is going to make. Like I said with the map system, we can use colors to denote exactly what type of terrain it is, and we've already basically got that. I mean, the blues are going to be water, the light green is going to be plain, dark greens can be forest. I think I might even have some other maps. Like this is grid 8E. This is grid 8F. And so on grid 8F, we had light blue for bodies of water. These are just like lakes. We had gray for mountains. The white, of course, was settlements. The dark green was forest. We can use these to color code. And what I think is going to happen is, depending on the dominant feature of the landscape, will determine how much mana is available there. Now the downside is I think this is going to need to be play tested, because I'm not sure. But we need to start writing some rules here. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to leave this as such. I'm going to try to consolidate it, though, if I can. So that can go there. We can delete this. That can go there. We can delete this one. This one can come up here. This one can come up here. We can delete that one. We can delete that one. Planes can go up there. We can delete that one. And that's about the best we can do, I think. We'll go ahead and put that there. And I'm just going to format painter this again, just to make sure that everything is still set. All right, now, as for the mana distribution system. So, mana... Let's see, environmental mana distribution. What I think I'm going to do is I'm going to use a series of dice rolls here. And in doing so, my hope here is that I can create kind of a variable environment, because when playing Magic the Gathering, one of the things that comes into play a lot is how much land you get. One of the strategies in Magic the Gathering is the resource management, and it's important because as you're playing cards that need different mana or have different mana requirements, you got to be able to meet those. Now, if you're playing a single color deck and all the land that you have in there is the same color as your cards, you know that every single time you pick up a land, it can be used for any one of your cards. Playing a dual color deck means that every time you pick up a land, it's 50-50 chance whether or not you can use it for a card. Now, 50-50 chance is not a bad thing, especially when anywhere from a third to a half of your deck is going to be land that you can draw on. However, that does not mean that this necessarily always works out. Sometimes you can draw all of the wrong color mana if you're holding all the other color cards. Sometimes you might not get any mana at all. What I think we're going to need to do is to work out a system where there could be a little or a lot of mana in any one particular area. And then we have to work on how much mana can you hold and use at any one time. So what I'm thinking of is this. In an area, we need to have a variable dice roll for how much we can really use. And when I think about it, the amount of mana that you should get should be on kind of a scale. So when I think about this, your standard set of dice is this. You've got a D4, a D6, a D8, a D10, a D12, and a D20. Technically there's a D100 dice, but that's just a D10, and you're using it for the 10 spot instead of the 1 spot. The oddball out here, of course, is the D20. The rest of these simply increase by 2s. What if we had some kind of sliding scale? What if? For what it's worth, and I know this is not terribly important, but when you look at a magic card, it actually has everything done in kind of a ring. So the mana colors are as such. You've got white, and then you've got blue. Then there is black, red, and green. Now I realize that this is not, something that's really firmly set in stone. However, this is kinda the opposition schools. So white is obviously opposed to black, blue is obviously opposed to red, black opposed to green. Red is kinda opposed to white in that white is essentially order, red is chaos. Blue and green are kinda sorta opposed, but not really. It's not perfect, but there is kind of an opposition school here. What if we could organize these in a way where we could use these different quantities of mana? Or is this just overcomplicating things? So we would want the highest concentration to be the D12, obviously. So if we were in, say, an actual planes, we would want this to be the, let's see, D12, D10, D8, D6, D4. So we would want the white mana to be here. Obviously. Now, if white mana is up there, if we're in a plains, that means that these bottom two should be red or black. And PC Unicorn's in the chat. Oh, good to hear. That means I get to do this again. Waving. Ah, it's good to see you here. And PC Unicorn says, don't know if it's important, but there's also colorless as a true color now. Some cards specifically say it needs colorless, and then there's snow mana too. Okay. I know that there is now technically, specifically colorless mana. I don't necessarily know how I'm going to handle that one, because I just don't know. As for snow mana, I'm not familiar enough, but I think that snow mana only came out in like one set. And so I'm very much inclined to simply ignore snow mana. Colorless mana, I'm more on the fence about. In my general experience with Magic the Gathering, colorless existed before colorless was a specific mana, and colorless could simply be paid for with any mana. It didn't care. Which is the direction that I'm kind of leaning in right now. I'm not really inclined to include it as a specific, just pay it with anything. What I really need to get into is that, technically speaking, and we have to get a little bit into the lore here, because the way this works, and I'm going to delete this. I don't like this. The way this works is the ley lines come down, and so you have ley lines that come in all the mana colors. So you got white, you got red, you got blue, you got black, and you've got green. Okay, so you've got all of these colors of mana, and they're going to come down. I'm going to go ahead and center these. So they're going to come down. And all of that is going to feed into a plane. Now, when it gets to the actual plane, all of this is going to suffuse into the plane. Did anyone ever see the movie The Langoliers or read the book? Okay? I'm gonna be honest with you. It's not a great book. It's not a great movie. But the idea behind the book and the movie, and if you haven't seen it, well, spoiler alert, because I'm going to spoil the shit out of it right now. The idea is that the people who are on the plane in the book The Langoliers, they fly through some kind of portal and they end up out of time. And so they actually end up just ever so briefly in the past, and they notice that nothing works here anymore. There's no electricity, there's no water, there's no nothing. They take a match, they try to light the match doesn't burn. They find that flavor doesn't exist, that there's nothing going on. And the reason they find out is because they're in the past. Time doesn't exist here anymore, because time in that book only exists in like one place. In fact, you can think of time as like a sheet, and that the world is moving through it, and only in the place where the two intersect is where time is actually moving. It's kind of the same thing with the planes and the ley lines. The plane technically exists even without the ley line, and the ley line exists without the plane. But it's only when the two come together that do things work. It's the green mana and the white mana flowing through the plane that gives things life. It's the red mana flowing through things that gives things energy. It's the black mana that flows through things that makes things decompose and return to the actual earth. It's the blue mana that creates things like time itself. So you need all of these things going through, and that means that no matter where you're standing, everything is available to you. It's not a matter of if, it's just a matter of how much. Now, when you're in a mountain, obviously you're going to find a lot more red mana there. There's going to be so much more red mana there. And if you're in a place, well, I mean, the reason why red and blue are kind of opposed is because when you think about geography, like, what is the one thing that you're not going to find a whole lot of up on a mountain? Water. I mean, yes, you may find snow, you may even find a lot of snow, but in general, water always runs downhill. Water will always be at the lowest point, and the mountains will always be the highest point, just by default. Yes, I know there are ways that you can make arguments for this. There are mountainous lakes, there are snow caps. That's like saying that by and large you don't tend to find a lot of greenery on mountains. However, you do still find alpine forests. They do exist. Which means that, You could find a fair amount of green mana on some mountains, but you can also think like the Himalayas. There's not a whole lot of trees in the Himalayas. At least not the higher altitudes anyway. So we are speaking a lot of generalities, but that doesn't mean that you couldn't find any. Because even on like the treeless mountains, you'll still find lichens, you'll still find moss, you'll still find things like that, and so there's always going to be at least a little bit. So what we need to do is we need to figure out a system where we can create that. The thing that I'm thinking of, though, is that we really need to have a system where we can just generate it. So what if I were to say that we used a D6 system? What if we simplify this and just use D6 systems? And we say that... I don't need this right now. What if we're in a mountain? Okay, we'll call it a mountain. We can call it a mountain. We can say we're in a mountain, and because of that, the mountain is primarily going to give us red mana. After that, we need white, we need blue, we need green, we need black. So what if we said the mountain is going to have 2d6, no, not 2d5, 2d6 mana in it, and everything else can be, no, not 1d5, 1d6. So what if we actually played around with that? I mean, I've got Roll20 right here. I just need to pull this back out. And we just roll some dice. So we do this. We can do 2d6. 1d6. And that almost worked. There we go. Alright, so we roll the dice. That means that if I had to do this, the mountain that we generated would have in it 4 red mana. It would have 2 white, 5 blue. It would have 6 green, and then 4 black. Well, that seems a little bit odd. And I'm not sure if I necessarily like this. There should not be a circumstance where you could have more of one color of mana in the mountain. So, let's think about this. So the average for 2d6 is supposed to be 5 or 6. Well, you can call it 5 through 7, but either way, it's supposed to be about 6 for the average. I don't want the others to go higher than that, though. What if we did D4s instead? So 1d4. That means that the highest these could ever go would be 4s. So what if we try that again? I'll go ahead and put a break in here. So 2d6 for the red mana. 1d4. And why did you screw up again? You know what? Doesn't matter. Roll it. Alright, so we do this again. And what is this going to give us? It's going to give us 6 for the red. And then 2, 3, 3, 3. Alright, so for the theoretical mountain that we're walking through, the amount of mana available here is going to be 6 red, 2 white, 3 blue, 3 green, 3 black. Now this means that as you're casting spells, okay, as you're doing your summonings and everything else, that means that the highest mana that you could cast, and this is going to get a little bit complicated. The highest mana that you could cast would be, in regards to just specifically colored mana, you could cast something that requires up to 6 red. Now, I cannot think of a single card off the top of my head that requires specifically 6 red mana. That being said, I can think of a lot of cards that require 2 white mana and even a few that require 3 white mana. Those cards that require 3 white mana to play, you could not play here. Which is what we're going for. We want one color to be dominant in any specific area. Now, in this case, this mountain looks like it has a lot of mana in it. It's going to support a lot of different things. And then, of course, you know, once you've paid your required mana cost, you can use pretty much anything else. Okay, I like where this is going so far. Of course, we're going to need a system of how we're going to draw this mana out, how much mana you can even hold, and how it's spent. Because every single turn in Magic the Gathering, you untap all of your lands, and you're allowed to use all that mana again. So, what we're going to need is some kind of system to kind of limit that a little bit. And what I think I'm going to do, what I think I want to do is to maybe tie this to level. So, in a Magic the Gathering game, it is very, very unlikely that you'll ever have 20 lands on the field. You could, but most games don't last that long. I mean, just in general, they don't last that long. Having 10 mana on the field is absolutely doable, and I think that's actually pretty common. Having up to 20, not bad. So what I'm thinking of here is having a system where you can hold, or you can utilize up to your level in mana every turn. Meaning that at level 1, you can only hold 1 mana. At level 2, you can hold 2 mana at one time. At level 3, you can hold 3. That's my current idea, at least. Here's what I think I'm going to do. For the environment, before we get into that, we need to solidify the mana distribution system. And so what I think we're going to do here is I'm going to say the dominant mana is going to get 2d6. And then other mana will get 1d4. And that should work according to anything. Like, all we have to do here is just swap out anything else. If you're in, say, a forest, okay, you're in a forest, then that's super simple, because we then just say green goes here, red goes here. And I'm not going to bother re-rolling everything, but you see the difference now. As a matter of fact, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to change this one to a 4 and this one to a 1, just so we have a better distribution of numbers. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. And yeah, I think this is a working system. That means that technically on the map, what do we have here? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Well, how many environments are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 of them. All right, well, watch this. We can go ahead and we can say that we've got 4013. Show me what we got. All right, so 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We'll call this one a lake. Next is going to be a 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is a hill. And let's see, it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Next is going to be aquatic, so we're just going to call this one ocean. Wait, no. Stop that. Stop that. Okay, ocean, and what was the other one? Two. 2 is going to be a coastline. Okay. Well, that's actually very interesting. Okay. So here we've got an environment. So we've got a lake, an ocean, a coastline, and a hill. Now, because of this, I can actually go ahead and say that maybe this is going to be a bay instead, because it's connected to the ocean. Well, actually, I could call it a bay. I could also call it the ocean. Either way, we have a hill. Here's the coastline for the hill as it's coming up to the ocean. And so because of this, obviously this is going to be blue. This is going to be blue. The coastline, however, is the only one we have here that's kind of a dual color. So this is going to be blue and white. And the hill, of course, is going to be red. Now, after this, we're going to have red, black, white, green. And actually, I'm going to redo that. White, red. And the reason I'm going to do it that way is so that I can do it this way. And then the red one, this is going to be green, black, white, blue. Okay. And let's see. PC Unicorn is just chatting up a storm here. Mana rocks are... mana rocks like Soul Ring 2 could take a round to charge up with their mana expense. Like 1 to cast for that one, and then good till the end of combat or disabled somehow. We'll get into that when we get into like the actual cards and how they're going to work. Not a bad idea, just not there yet. PC Unicorn says coastlines tend to produce blue and white. Yes, I've already got that written down here, right here. And so because that one is a dual color, the rules are going to be a little bit different. So, as we're making our environment here, we're going to take the first one here. And it's going to be 64421. So 64421. Let me add a break. And we'll do that again. This one is going to be 101131. Oops, not 12. 101131. Let me add a break. For the ocean, that's going to be 64222. 64222. And then the coastline, because of its dual nature, let me add a break in here. Maybe GR2D6. GR2D6. No, it's 3D6. Throw some dice, and that's going to be 72114. So 72114. Okay. I am just going to go ahead and center everything on this sheet. Now, this is just for a demonstration, but it means that when making the map, not only would every square on the map be color-coded so that the players themselves will be able to see what's going on, but on the DM side, when players need to know how much mana they have available at any given time, this is what the DM would be able to tell them. So the Bay would have a maximum of 6 blue mana, which is more than anything else, which is exactly what we want to see. The Bay has 6 blue mana available. White and black both have 4. There's not a whole lot of red mana here, very little green mana at all. Now, given that cards that cost or use 2 of any given color are actually pretty common, could make casting green cards in this Bay very, very difficult. For the hills have an immense amount of red mana in them. Green, black, and blue, however, very, very little. And white has 3. And this actually kind of gives us an idea of what this hill probably looks like. So there is very little blue mana, which means there's no standing water here at all. The only water here is probably what's in the plants. What's in the plants and what's in the soil. The same thing, there's no black. Okay? There's no black, which means this place is very lively. There is little decay at all here. You're not going to see a lot of dead plants, no rotting logs, no animal carcasses, nothing. There's also no standing water, there's no nutrient-poor soils. It is like the farthest from a swamp you can get. There's 3 white mana here. Now, white is the color of plains. What is a plains? Generally a large flat area covered in grasses. So when we say that there's an immense amount of red mana here for the hill, and a fair amount of white mana too, this tells me this is a grass-covered hill. I mean, think about your Windows XP wallpaper. That is probably this hill. The ocean. When we look at the ocean, it's got lots of blue mana in it. Obviously, it should. Lots of white mana, though. Now, why are you getting white mana here? I'm not sure. But there's definitely something going on. White mana is the color of life, so maybe there's just a lot of life here. Not a lot of black. There's some black, so, I mean, there is decay in the ocean. A little bit of red. Maybe there's lots of waves. I don't know. A little bit of green. So this does kind of inform us as to like what is inside of this ocean. Same for the coastline. Lots of blue mana, not a lot of white. So if the sand part is where we're going to get the white mana from, maybe it's a very thin coastline. We see that it's butting up against the hills. So maybe because of that, there's very little grass here, there's very little sand here. The water almost comes right up to the hill itself. Very little black, very little red, to be expected. Lots of green, though. Maybe there's a few trees here. Maybe there's a lot of trees here. I don't know. But it does kind of give us an idea of what the area is like. I think this is actually going to be a pretty good system. And the fact of the matter is that in this area, we have 6 and 4 is 10, 14, 16, 17 mana available. Now, I've asked, what is the most expensive card in Magic the Gathering? And the answer that I got was 16. Now, granted, that was a card that had an affinity for artifacts, and it was an artifact card. And so that made it a lot cheaper. And I believe one of them also had, what's the name of the ability? Either way, it got a discount for each color spent on it. But regardless, if you were to pay the base mana cost, it was 16. Technically speaking, if you were a high enough level, you could cast that card here. For the hill, that's 10, 11, 12, 15, 16. You can cast that card here. The ocean, 6 and 4 is 10, 12, 14, 16. You can cast that card here. The coastline, 7, 2 is 9, 10, 11, 15. Just barely short on casting that most expensive card, but 15 is still a lot. Meaning that if you were a high enough level planeswalker, you could cast pretty much anything in your repertoire here. Unless, of course, it requires more black or red mana than is available in the land. I like this system. I think this system is going to be really good. So let's go ahead and delete that. We don't need that anymore. Okay. So we're going to keep this this mana distribution system. Next up, I'm going to go ahead and kind of fix these a little bit too. So next up, we're going to need to have the actual mana draw system. So mana draw system. Now, again, what I think is going to be really, really simple here is to simply have it so that you can hold up to 2 mana per, or 1 mana per level. So that's my working theory at the moment. So you can cast 1 mana per level. Now, what I believe that's going to do is, I don't really have a page here to see magic cards. Where should I go for that? I'm just going to type in magic card lookup. Ah, here we go. This ought to work. Let me send that to the other window. All right, here we go. No, I don't want your cookies. So what we can do here is, I don't really care about color. I don't really care about type and all that. can I sort here by the amount of mana? Here we go. Mana cost equal. Yeah, equals 2. 1. Let's add that. And let's search. Let's see if this is going to work or not. Yes! Perfect. Obviously, I just got a whole bunch of artifacts. It's like the last thing I wanted was artifacts. Well, no. Actually, that's probably my fault. I should have been more specific. So, if I come down to mana cost... Where was that? Red? Let's see if I remember how this all works. Yeah, here we go. Okay. So these are all cards that cost 1 red mana. And there's a lot of them, obviously, especially when, you talk about red mana, because red tends to be very fast. But just grabbing one of these, so at level 1, you could have, say, this Akum Hellhound. And at level 1, you would be able to hold, or to draw, 1 mana per turn. Meaning that you could cast this card. Now, ignoring all the other stuff where it says, landfall whenever land enters the battlefield under your control, this thing gets +2/+2. We don't have rules for that yet. Don't know what we're going to do about it yet. However, the point is that you could, at level 1, summon a creature like this. Now, the rest of it is going to be stuff that we're going to have to work on. The point is that at level 1, you also would not be able to summon anything that costs more than this. You can only hold the 1 mana in your hand at any given time, meaning that at level 1, when you pick your spells, you will pick the spells that best... You're not going to pick anything that costs 2, unless you're trying to future plan or something. Knowing that at level 2, you'll have more mana. In general, you're going to want to go ahead and just pick cards that only cost 1. Now, of course, that means that at level 2... Let me come back here. Mana cost... Let's see if I can do this right. We can get rid of this. And this should give me cards that cost 2 red. Yeah, I'm good at this. Okay. At level 2, we have this instant caught in the crossfire. So at level 2, when you pick your additional spells, you can choose these. And you can see how you're beginning to kind of build up your repertoire of spells. I know for a fact that there are other spells. So, for example, Giant Growth, I think. Giant Growth is a spell that costs 1? I thought it cost more than that. Oh, okay. I thought it cost more than that. So, at any rate, let's say that you were playing a Planeswalker and you wanted, or you brought, because I play red mostly, a Raging Goblin. All right? So you have this Raging Goblin creature. So, on your turn, you, of course, because this is Pathfinder, you'll have your equipment and stuff on you, and you'll be able to use your equipment for, whatever you want to do. You could also cast a spell. You could summon a Raging Goblin. Okay, and he goes in there and he gets all chop. But let's say that because we're working in a slightly different system and every land has all the mana in it, at least one, you bring a Raging Goblin and Giant Growth, which honestly sounds like a great combination. So the Raging Goblin is out there on your next turn. If he's still alive, you can cast Giant Growth on him. You can't do them both at once because you can't hold that much mana at one time. However, once you hit level 2, you could cast the Raging Goblin and the Giant Growth on him at the same time, which, according to our other rules, where was it? Was it here? No. Yeah, okay, I didn't actually write it down, but creature size equals power and toughness. I believe it was done in 4s. So anything like 1 to 4 is a small creature, 5 to 8 is medium, and so on. It wouldn't quite make him a medium-sized goblin, but it would get close. But you see where we're going here? And I think this is a really good idea. So it's not cast 1 mana per level. I think it is we need to be able to hold 1 mana per level. Now, one of the things that PC Unicorn brought up were mana rocks. And when we say mana rock, we're talking about things that you can use for additional mana. I'm not sure how we're going to handle that, whether that should be its own independent source of mana that you can use, or if it should be something you can draw from. My initial thought is that should be something you can draw from. You get mana from it. And so you could use a mana rock to help supplement your needs if you were in an exceptionally mana poor area. It's just more mana that you can bring with you. Which I guess technically means that if you were to pick up enough mana rocks, you could be entirely self-sufficient. And that does make sense. I mean, it's possible that you could have a planeswalker out there with so many different sources of mana carried on them that they wouldn't even need to technically use the ley lines. I'm not sure, though. It also brings into consideration the idea of, like, creatures that can channel mana. The first thing that comes to my mind would be mirrors, because I also play artifacts. And there is a mirror for every color of mana. In this case, we simply have a creature that could go ahead and give you additional mana. They naturally channel it the same way you do. For example, the Leaden Mirror, you can tap it for 1 black mana. And so you could have this little creature standing right next to you, and the area is particularly poor in black mana, then there you go. Again, these are rules that we're not ready for yet, and I could even make it so that perhaps artifact creature... Well, no, that doesn't work. I was going to say, perhaps artifact creatures simply exist. However, all of these creatures technically exist, because when you summon a creature, you're not summoning the actual creature, you're only summoning an echo of the creature. We have to be very careful about that. Okay, so in that case, now that we've got the mana draw system, and I think this is going to work out well. If we come to Planeswalkers, you get mana and spells. And what I think we're going to do here is I'm going to say, max mana and max spells. And this is going to be really simple because this is going to be 1, 2, 3, And this here is going to be 4, 8, 12, I think. No, it's not that. It's going to be 3, 6, 9, actually, I believe. Yep, that's how it's done. Okay. And so this would be the way that this is going to work. So you can hold up to 1 mana per level. At the first level, that means you're restricted to casting cards that cost only 1. At the second level, you're restricted to casting cards that cost 2, or you can cast 2 cards that cost 1. And then so on and so forth. The more mana you can hold, so long as you can pay the cost every turn, this works. Now, how this becomes complicated is if the land only has, say, 4 red mana to play, or 4 red mana for you to draw every turn. If you try to pay, because you're at level 8, if you try to pay a whole bunch, or play a whole bunch of red spells, then you're probably not going to have the red mana for all of them. Now, you may be able to mix that with other kinds of mana to make it work, but that's the same thing that you do in the tabletop card game, where you may have a 2 or 3 color deck. You have a whole bunch of 1 color to play, so you say, I need, as a requirement, 5 red mana. And so you take 5 red mana and put them off to the side, and then I'm going to need an additional 8 mana. And so you start grabbing plains and forests and mana rocks and whatever else it is you need to get you to that point. So later in the game, when it comes to how many spells you can play per turn, that's how that's going to work. Now, how we're going to limit spells, I don't know yet. I don't honestly know yet. According to the rules for, I believe it's called Constructed, you're only allowed to have 4 copies of any spell in your deck. I don't know if we're going to be adhering to that or not. But we're going to work on it. Okay. But that takes care of the mana and spells part of the Planeswalker. So we've got the environmental mana system. As far as cartography goes, here's what I think we'll do for that. Well, we're going to make a legend. We're going to make a legend. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to put this here. I'm going to default these, but then we're just going to format paint them. Okay, we're going to need different colors for all of these. So, for example, plains. For plains are usually represented as being kind of a tan color. We can probably pull that off. The question is, do I want to make it like a yellow? I mean, we could do that. For ocean and sea. Oceans tend to be kind of a darker color. So maybe blue 3. Mountains. Mountains is super easy because mountains are made out of stone. So we'll pick, say, a grade 3 for mountains. Jungles are very dense, so they're going to be a very deep green. So we've got turquoise, no, green. We'll go with a green 5? A green 5, maybe? Hills. Well, hills are kind of a bit harder, because I'm not sure what color is really going to represent a hill. We'll skip that one for the moment. We'll go to forests. Forests ought to be pretty easy. They're like a jungle, just less jungle-y. So if the jungle is green 5, we make the forest green 3. Looks like a nice deciduous green there. Deserts. I see, this is where plains and deserts kind of step on each other's toes. Because deserts and plains are kind of the same color now. Is there a better color I can use for the plains? You know what? That kind of works. That works. Coastline is going to be difficult because that's a dual color. Aquatic? Well, that's kind of easy. Do we have like an aquamarine? I have a cyan. So rivers and lakes. What if we just go with like a straight blue on that one? Bog, marsh, and swamp. Technically let's go with like a green 7. No, I don't like that. I mean, I guess I could make them just straight up black. That's the color of the mana, at least. It's not really the color of your typical... Well, no, it kind of is. It's either be black or like a dark brown. City and urban is just going to have to be like... You know what? Actually, white is kind of fine for that. Underground... I could make underground black, but then I have to change the color for the bog and marsh. Look like a brown or something. How about orange 6? I think that kind of works. So... I'll go ahead and just put a border around city urban so that it's kind of noted as that. Hills, well, here's what I think I could do. We'll go ahead and make the hills a light gray. Something like gray 3. And if that's going to be it, maybe a gray 6 for the mountains. And then the coastline being a dual color, the only dual color we have, that's complicated. Is there like some kind of custom coloring that I can do? Not really. So I guess for that one we'll just go ahead and do... We'll do a sky blue. Well, I wonder. So... Actually, you know what? Yellow-green, I think, is going to be it. We'll do yellow-green for the coastline. Because, technically, if the plains are white or yellow and the water is going to go ahead and be blue, you put them together, you get a green. We'll use a yellow-green. It'll be fine. And so there we go. We've got a legend. And then, of course, this is going to be blue, blue, white, white, green, red, green, red, blue, white, blue, black, and colorless, colorless. And colorless, for our purposes, is just going to mean that there is no dominant. So it'll just be a 1d4 for everything. It'll essentially be a mana poor area. And so we're going to call this the... We'll merge these together. We'll call this the dominant mana by terrain. We can delete this. Move this down here. And then move the entire thing over to here. No? You're not going to let me do that? Can I put it right here? I can put it right there. Okay. So I'm just going to adjust the columns, and there we go. So we know how to make our map. We know how to distribute the mana in the map. So I can simply make a grid that tells me how much mana is available in each one. And the reason why we do this is because if we come back to this map, I wonder if I have everything set up here. According to the rules, you're only allowed to travel for 8 hours a day because in general you're walking. And if you're not walking, it's generally your horses that are walking. Either way, you're only allowed to expend 8 hours traveling before you're pushing yourself. And so if I have everything measured here, yeah, every single square here is 24 miles. Oh, you can't see that there. Here we go. 24 miles. The reason being, the average speed for most creatures is about 3 miles an hour just walking. You can't run in the entire 8 hours. You just can't do it. So walking speed is 30 feet. That comes out to 3 miles an hour. 8 hours at 3 miles an hour is 24, which means you can pass through every single one of these squares in 1 day, wherever you're going. That means that every single time you enter into one of these squares, though, it could be different. So every single one of these squares is open land, okay? This is all plains. And every single time you enter into one of these plains, the mana distribution could be different. Although I guess in this case, this is going to be a lot of forest. So maybe stick to the road. Because of that, every single time you enter into a new forest, it's going to be different. So in, let's say, let me grab the horse and cart here. So let's say you're entering into this square because it's difficult. Either way, you enter into this square right here. There's going to be 11 green mana here, and then just we'll call it red, blue, white, black. So 11 green will have 4 red, 1 blue, 1 white, and 4 black. Okay, great. So if you have spells to cast, if you're green, you're golden. You got all the green mana that you could ever need. You move into the next square though, okay? You move into the next square, and this area has a different mana distribution. This area only has 4 green mana available, and then 2 red, 1 blue, 4 white, and 1 black. So just by traveling a single day, everything has changed. And then, of course, if you're traveling and you enter a town, well, that town is also going to have its own mana distribution because it's urban. It's going to be all D4s. And so we're just going to go like this. And I don't know why it constantly screws that up. Okay, it screwed that up entirely. But either way, we'll just say that this area has, say, 2 green, 3 red, 3 blue, 1 white, and we'll just say maybe 2 black. Again, very poor mana in this area. Might be a bit of a struggle for a higher level planeswalker. However, you might make it work. So I think this is a good system. I think this is a really good system here. So the map can be made up of whatever is the dominant or subsequent terrains, and you'll just have to make the best of it what you will. What I think is really interesting about this is it's going to make you diversify a lot. Oh, and JP I think is back. Hold on, you waved, you get a wave back. Wavies. What I think is going to happen is as people are making their planeswalkers, it's going to force them to really diversify. Now, playing the tabletop game, because you are so reliant on drawing the lands that you need to play your cards, it is generally accepted that you play a dual color, maybe a triple color deck. Any more than that, and you run a very large risk of simply not getting the cards that you need. The exception to this rule, of course, is an artifact deck, and artifact decks tend to be rainbow by default. Rainbow meaning they have all the colors in the deck. Just because they have that flexibility, since all of their artifacts, their creatures, and many of the things that they're going to use simply do not rely on any one color. For this game, however, while you may specialize in a single color, maybe you have a particular affinity for one, maybe you like elves in particular, and so you lean much more into the green cards. Or perhaps you're really big into, say, fire-breathing dragons, and so you lean more into red. That'll be a preference, not a requirement, and as a matter of fact, it may do you better to diversify your spells. As I gave before in my example, perhaps at level 1 you want to take a Raging Goblin of some sort, a Raging Goblin and Giant Growth, so you can combine those spells. Maybe you also take a counter spell, so that you have a creature, you have an instant that you can play to boost it, and you have something to use against other planeswalkers. All of these spells cost only 1 to play. You can generally play these anywhere you go, because you can't go to an area that has 0 of any mana. You'll be encouraged to diversify what you're doing, especially as you get into higher levels where you know that there might not be enough mana to cast all of your spells that are one color. So instead, you break it up. You carry, since you get 3 per level, because the constructed deck is 60 cards. That means at level 20 you should have a full deck. At level 20 you should have 60 spells to use. And, you know, the interesting thing is that in constructed play, A third to a half of that is probably going to be mana. This is actually going to give you a lot more spells to play with than a normal deck would. But it's fine. It's fine. As a matter of fact, I want to actually check that. Not the constructed play, but I want to see how that compares. We're going to come back to look at a sorcerer, since that's the closest to a planeswalker. So this is how many they can cast per day. However, they know fewer spells. But let's take a look. A sorcerer at level 20 would know 9 cantrips. Let me get my calculator out here because I don't want to do the math. Calculator. So 9 cantrips plus 5 ones plus 5 twos, 4 threes, 4 fours, 4 fives, 3 sixes, 3 sevens, 3 eights, and 3 nines. That comes out to 43 spells that a sorcerer at level 20 would know. Technically speaking, the planeswalker is going to know more spells. However, that being said, planeswalkers are going to have to divide their spells up between creatures, instant sorceries, enchantments, things like that. And I mean, technically speaking, a sorcerer would be able to also learn summon spells. I mean, they can learn summon monster. Maybe. I don't know. The alternative is that we cut the deck size down. Now, they don't use these sizes anymore, but there are technically formats where you can have a 40-card deck. I remember reading about them, and I even looked them up. It used to be a thing. 40-card decks used to be a thing. 45-card decks used to be a thing when they would do like the booster things. I don't know what the proper term is for that. So we could knock it down if we wanted to make it more in line with the sorcerer. I don't know if we can necessarily compare the wizard, because wizards don't really have an upper limit on how many spells they can know. So a wizard starts with all cantrips, except those from their opposed school if they have any C schools, plus 3 first-level spells of their choice. So, I mean, if we're looking at just the cantrips, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31. 31 cantrips. Now, there's some argument as to which ones you're allowed to have or not, because some come from outside of the Paizo resources, but that's still, 30 spells. Then they get to start adding more spells, and they have a spell book where they can copy them down to. So a wizard could technically learn a lot more than 60. However, they can only cast this many per day. I mean, there are bonus spells that you can get, but that's 40 spells per day. PC Unicorn says draft is what I'm thinking for 45. Yeah, that sounds about right. I'm not up on all the terminology. I don't know if they even do that anymore, though. I think it's a dead format. I could be wrong, though. So it looks like the wizard can cast 40 spells per day. The sorcerer can know roughly 40 spells, although sorcerers are defined by their ability to cast more spells per day. Sorcerers get to cast more, and wizards get to know more. But the sorcerer can cast up to Let's see. This only covers 9 levels, but you can cast 6 of each. That's 6 times 9 is 54. I could do math. 54 spells per day. So the Planeswalker is kinda gonna be a mixture of both. They're gonna know more spells. They're gonna know more spells. Can they cast more per day, though? See, this is where we're gonna get into some weird issues. And we don't have enough time to necessarily get into this. So we got we branch out the mana system here. I'm just gonna spitball here for a little bit, because getting into casting spells, I guess this is not entirely detached. This is part of what we need to deal with. According to constructed rules, you can only cast a spell 4 times. Now, for the wizard, that is determined by what spells you prepare each day. If you have access to, we just counted them, 30-some cantrips, but you can only prepare 4 per day. Now, the interesting thing about cantrips is that for the wizard, once you prepared it, you can cast it any number of times you want. But you can still only pick 4 per day. As for everything after that, though, you by default only get 4 spells of that level per day. Now, if you have a high enough intelligence, you can get bonus spells. We're not getting into that. We're also not getting into things like your Arcane Bond, your Arcane School. Regardless, doesn't matter. You only get like maybe 4. We'll bump it up to say like 6 or 7 spells per day once you add everything else in. According to constructed rules, you can have 4 of each spell in your hand. According to how that would play out in the game, then, if you can play 4 of each spell, that means that your level 1 Planeswalker, if we were to actually limit this, would be able to cast up to 12 spells a day. This could be a bit of a problem. And I do have to say that this is going to be a problem because keep in mind that whatever I put in the game for the players, that is what you might have to be facing yourself in the game. Oh, and Jeffrey says, "How are you, Shadowcat?" I'm doing great. I'm having the time of my life right now. I love doing this, so I'm in a good place here. This is gonna get complicated. Because technically speaking, what we would need to do is we would need to we would need to keep track of this, and keeping track of things is awful. I mean, ask anyone who plays Dungeons and Dragons how many people actually keep track of their arrows. Keeping track of things like ammunition is actually kind of crucial for a long-term campaign. Then ask how many players actually do it, because in my experience, it's actually very few. Keeping track of how many times you've cast a single spell per day could be a lot. Now, there is an alternative here, but it's not a very good alternative, but it is a possible alternative, and that is to borrow a rule from Commander play. Now, Commander rules are different. So in Commander play, you have a 100-card deck. But unlike Constructed, you cannot have any duplicates. The exception, of course, being land, but we're not dealing with land cards. You can only have one of every card in the deck. Which means that since every card that's not a land is a spell, you can only play a spell once. Once per combat, or per game. If we went by that rule, it means that you could, at level 1... Oops, not that one. Here we go. You could, at level 1, be able to hold or cast 3 spells. At level 2, the sorcerer is able to cast 4 spells. And our planeswalker here would be able to cast 6. So already the planeswalker is like well ahead of the sorcerer. At level 3, that goes from 4 to 5 spells per day. At level 3, our planeswalker can cast 9. And so I'm looking at this and it's like, planeswalker is like way broken, right? Well, then we get to level 4. This is where the sorcerer gets its first level 2 spell. And that puts them up to 12 per day, which is exactly where our planeswalker is. I'm going to go ahead and pull up the wizard and see how well it tracks with that. Wizards do not normally get as many per day. So the wizard at level 1 gets 3 cantrips and a level 1 spell. Not counting bonuses. So that's 4. 4 to 3. At level 2, the wizard gets 6. The planeswalker gets 6. Even. At level 3, 4, 2, and 1 is 7. The planeswalker gets 9. Planeswalker's ahead. At level 4, 4, 3, 2, that's going to be 9. And we go up to 12 here. So we're well ahead of the wizard. However, this is also max spells known. If we ignore the cantrips, and we just say that the wizard gets 3 level 1 spells, plus a number of additional spells equal to their intelligence, added to the spell book, and then at every level they get 2 spells of any spell level or levels that they can cast. That means that at level 2, they started with 3. At level 2 it's 5, then 7, then 9. And so at level 4, they would know 11 spells. At level 4, the planeswalker would know 12. So 1 ahead. The wizard is quickly going to fall behind in terms of number of spells known. I think. So maybe we do knock this down a little bit. Not sure if I want to or not, but maybe. Unless we make a separate list. Because I could do that. I could make a separate list. Spells per day, and then spells known. I could do that. PC Unicorn says your at level 5, your system may hit problems with Woober. That is 5 color spells, since they're usually powerful but really slow by having to get all the colors you need. That is an interesting point. I'll have to look into those. Because I don't necessarily know any off the top of my head. I tell you what. You have me on Discord. If you can send me some examples of those, I would be very curious about that. Yeah, I hadn't considered those, mostly because I didn't know about them. So instead, something we could do is we could say... we could add a column here for spells known. And so we could combine a little bit of the sorcerer and the wizard. This would give you a few different options. So it would essentially let you construct a 40-card deck of pure spells. Now again, this is still in your favor. A 60-card deck is usually going to be about 1/3 to 1/2 mana. 1/3 would be 20 cards, and so if you have 20 cards of mana, of lands, that leaves you 40 spells. Now this means that you would not be able to diversify quite as much, but maybe that's actually for the better. Maybe it forces you to really focus in on maybe 2 or 3 spells that you know. Now, as far as the multicolor spells that PC Unicorn just suggested, again, we get down to this max mana because you wouldn't have to worry about those until level 5. After that, though, I don't know. Now, granted, there is a very simple solution to this. There's a very simple solution to this, and that is to simply say, everything is going to be by GM's discretion anyway. And this is an overarching rule in all tabletop games. The GM is God, okay? GM can stand for either Game Master or just God mode, because that's who the GM is. And if the GM says no, the answer is no. And if you argue with the GM, the answer is get off of my table. Okay? So, worst case scenario, and I have to express, this is the worst case scenario. The GM could simply have to look at the spells you're taking and give a yes or no. This is nothing new, because sometimes you just have to do it. Every once in a while, you'll have a player who comes in with a power build, and you just have to nix it, because you're just like, look, I see what you're doing. It's going to break the game. There are also some things that a GM may simply just say, no, it doesn't belong in my game. For example, and this is a very common example, if we go into classes, and I know I've talked at length about this before, but if we come to classes, and especially when we come to prestige classes, I've talked about these before, but the assassin. This is one class that is usually banned at like 80% of tables. And it's not necessarily because this class is overly powerful. It's really not. But just because it's one of those things where everyone looks at it, especially when you're talking about a game that's played primarily by, you know, edgy teenagers and young adults. They see the assassin, they go, yes, I want to be an assassin, and I want to stab things. And it's like, no, okay? Just no. That is the wrong kind of assassin, okay? This is not the, like, I'm going to play Diablo and I'm going to play an assassin character. No, this is like the I'm going to play Assassin's Creed, be an assassin character, where you need to actually blend in, move slowly, identify your target, try to get close to them without getting caught, and then you get to stab them. And hopefully kill them, because they get a saving throw against it. Because of that, this is usually banned at most tables. It's kind of a player trap. There are such things as player traps. This is one of them. And so usually it's just not allowed. Now, I don't know these other cards that are like really super powerful. I'll look into them later, but they may be one of those things that is simply just, no, you can't have it. Now, I don't like to do that. I'm going to be straight with you. I don't like doing that. And I don't even ban the assassin character. I just put extra rules on it. I've talked about it at length before, but one of the specials is you must kill somebody for no other reason than to become an assassin. My rule at the table is if you're trying to prove yourself as an assassin, it's gotta be somebody that matters. And usually that means it's gotta be another player. You cannot just be an assassin by, walking up to the random flower vendor on the side of the street and stabbing them through the heart. That's not an assassination. That's murder. Okay? And you're players. You're already murderers. So, it has to be somebody important. Usually it's a player, but if you made the case for me that you want to become an assassin by killing, like, the primary NPC, or something that is quite honestly going to be more detrimental to your party than it is going to be helpful, then yeah, I can do that. If you want to actually go in and try to murder the Lord of the Land, okay, if you can actually pull off assassinating the Lord of the Land, I will let you become an assassin. So even I won't ban that. So yeah, I'll look into those spells later. I'll see what they look like, what they do, how important they are. I mean, a level 5, or a spell that costs 5 is usually decently powerful on its own anyway. Oh, and let's see, JP says the assassin has to wear a bell. I mean, that's funny, yes. Jeffrey says your player person, your character essentially, is asleep in his sleeping bag. I think you mean your bedroll. The DM says make a reflex save. Oh, no. You're close. But no. No. Let me introduce you to something. And we're going to be getting out of here anyway, but let me introduce you to something. I want game mastering. I want combat. No, see, what's going to happen here is that the player who wants to become an assassin is just going to send me a secret message. They're either going to do it through Roll20 by sending me a whisper, or they're going to do it through Discord. Because if you want to play with us, if you want to play a game with us, you have to join the Discord and go to the behind the screen channel to let me know what game you want to play and what your availability is. See how I slid that in there? So smooth. No, what's going to happen is the player who wants to become an assassin is going to send me a secret message that says, I'm going to be on Firewatch, okay? And while everyone else is sleeping, I am going to murder the ranger. And so, because the ranger is sleeping, I mean, technically they do get a perception check to hear you coming up. But if you're sleeping, you take a -20 to your perception check. Instead, where is it? I came down here and then it jumped. There it is. So you are technically entitled to a perception check, at which point already the player is going to be like, okay, why do I have to make a perception check? What's up? At which point, when they fail their perception check because they were sleeping, the assassinating character gets to perform what's called a coup de grace. So, it's not going to be a reflex save, it's going to be a fortitude save. The DC is 10 plus whatever damage dealt or die. Now, it's already a critical hit. Automatically, it's a critical hit. So, whatever damage you dealt is already doubled. Or, depending on what weapon you're using, possibly tripled. So if you're using something like, I don't know, a Great Axe, which does a D12 with a ×3 multiplier, your DC here could be anything from a 13, if you rolled a 1, to a potentially a 46. And if you're a rogue, you also get to use your extra sneak attack damage, which could be anywhere from, depending on what level you are, well, I mean, you have to be what level do you have to be to even become an assassin? I don't remember this just off the top of my head. Prestige classes, assassin. You need at least 5 ranks in stealth. Since you can only have 1 rank per level, you need to be a minimum of level 5 before you can even think to become an assassin. At level 5, your rogue gets a 3d6 sneak attack. So you could potentially, that's potentially 18 damage. You could potentially have a fortitude save of 46 plus 18. That's 56, 64. A DC 64 fortitude save. Good luck. So you do that. They, of course, cannot survive that, and they're dead. And so that's literally how it would work. It would just be, I as the GM get a secret message. I tell you that your character needs to make a perception check, and you roll it. I say you remain sound asleep. I then tell you to make a fortitude save. You make a fortitude save, and then when you fail it, I simply tell you that your character is now dead. And at that point, you then say, how is my character dead? What happened? And I'm like, I could tell you, but you're dead. And so, you have no idea. As far as the rest of the party goes, they're going to say, did I hear anything? And I'm going to say, make a perception check. You're all sleeping. And so everybody else makes a perception check at -20 because they're sleeping. No one else knows anything else. And so, after the Firewatch's shift is over, or come the morning, whichever comes first, everybody except for the dead character wakes up and realizes that either the dead character is still there and dead, or that their bedroll is empty and their body is nowhere to be seen. If you want to become an assassin, that's how you do it. Yes, I have put a lot of thought into this. Mostly because I play rogue, and I've always had that, tucked away in the corner if I ever wanted to become an assassin myself. So, that's how that's going to work. And again, I mean, I put that rule in there just because I do not like to say no. I really don't. I tend to play my fantasy games as hard as I possibly can. And I don't mean in terms of difficulty. I mean in terms of, like, realism. And real life never tells you no. You are allowed to do whatever dumbass thing you want to. Do you want to go bungee jumping without a cable? You can do that. Do you want to crawl into some dark cave and you don't even know where it goes? You can do that. Life will never stop you from doing whatever dumbass thing you want, and so I don't like to stop you from doing whatever dumbass thing you want to in the game. I will, of course, because I am the GM and I am partially responsible for the consequences, I will give you the obligatory, "Are you sure?" And if you don't realize this by now, whenever the GM says, "Are you sure?" that's usually your cue that whatever you're doing is going to end poorly. But I won't stop you unless it's absolutely going to destroy the entire game. So I will look at these cards and see what they look like, and that will determine whether or not they have to be banned or not. I hope not. I really do. I do realize that the way this is kind of playing out has the potential to make Planeswalkers kind of incredibly broken. But it's one of those things where we're just going to have to deal with it as we get to it. So, for now, I'm going to go do some more research. When we come back next time, the mana system is pretty well done. I think we're going to revisit the Planeswalker and see what other abilities they're going to get, what kind of class features we can get, because we know they can teleport, we know they can planeswalk. We need to figure out what else can they do, and when along their path should they get it. So, if you want to see how the Planeswalker turns out, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon, that way you get notified. It's the same time every week, so you don't even technically need the bell icon, but you know what? Hit the bell icon anyway. Pushing buttons is fun. Never deny yourself the fun of pushing buttons. If you know somebody else who's also into either Pathfinder or Magic the Gathering, then share the stream with them. They'll probably get something they enjoy out of it. They may even come back to correct me on things, or tell me things that I should be doing instead. And you know what? I welcome that. Let them come and tell me what to do. I can always use the help. Otherwise though, if you just like me, you like what I'm doing, leave a like on the video, leave a comment down below. Better yet, join the Discord, tell me what you think over there, especially if you want to play the game. If you want to play the game, you gotta be on the Discord. Go to the Discord, go to the Behind the Screen channel, let me know what game you want to play and what your availability is. And as soon as I have a group together, we'll make it happen. So, all that being said, thank you everyone for coming out today. I'm going to give everybody a wave on the way out, because I can. There's a wave. And I will see you next time for more Magic the Gathering. Until then, take care.